suffering is portrayed on screen.
Well, it wasn't make Luke suffer. That wasn't really our premise.
He's hurting for a bunch of this.
The thing was, it was interesting. Of the many criticisms of season 1, the ones that really affected me the most, and this is in a good way, was Angelica J. Bastian's like her episodic summaries of the season. Some of them she loved, some episodes she loves, some were scathing, but they were so well written and just brilliant, just in terms of their deconstruction of what we were doing, what we were attempting to do, that at the very beginning of the season, I printed out all 13 of them, and as a writing staff, we read them and went through them, because I said because I read everything. I read every single comment. Like, if you want to holler at me at Twitter and get into a little tweet battle, I'm for it.
All right.
Like, I mean, it's just, you have to be like that, because being a former critic, you develop a very thick skin. And so, like, that's why sometimes it's fun. I'll put in Luke Cage, and I'll go on Twitter, and then I'll read some of the criticisms, and then I'll literally just answer, and people will be like, "What?"
Wait, this is a verified account?
Exactly. But that's the whole. That's the genius of Twitter is the fact that you can engage on that level. But the thing was that I found the criticisms in a way very helpful, because she was pointing out, for all the things that we imagined, and all the different backstories, we didn't necessarily spend enough time on imagining Luke Cage and his evolution as a man. So it was really one of the things that we wanted to do, was make sure that this time out, that we had a full emotional evolution for Luke, to take him on an emotional journey for all 13 episodes. And that was one of the most important things that we did, because we knew that we had some really interesting side stories for Mariah Dillard. We knew that we were going to have some interesting things, with Shades. We knew that we were introducing 2 new villains in terms of Bushmaster and a potential villain in Mariah's daughter, Tilda. We also knew that we had Misty Knight's evolution because of losing her arm in the Defenders. But we didn't lose sight of Luke. And the one thing that we thought about is that, I love boxing and I love boxers. Mike Tyson said something 30 years ago that is still one of my favorite quotes of all time, in which he said, "Everybody's got a plan until they get punched in the face."
Oh, that is a great quote. Yes,
and so
yes.
What that means, and it's, if you watch boxing, they're working out, they got a training,
I'm going to do this and this.
You're watching your opponent on film,
Yeah.
You're working out, and all, getting into your whole Rocky thing, Rocky versus Clubber Lang kind of thing. But then once you actually get in the ring and you get punched for the first time, at that point you really understand who you're going against.
Right.
Like I like one of my favorite moments was it was Ricky Hatton versus Pacquiao. Because I watched the HBO 24/7s, and there was all this build-up because Floyd Mayweather Sr. was training Ricky Hatton, and you thought that, hey, Ricky looks pretty good, and he's working class, he's British, and interesting story, and then he gets in the ring, and you think, okay, this guy's got a chance, and then he gets in the ring, and Pacquiao, I swear to God, when he knocked him out, I thought he killed him, and after he knocked him out in that way, Ricky Hatton's career just never recovered. And his personal life, it fell to shambles, and that motivation, it made me think, and we talked about this as a writing staff. It's like, if Luke Cage as a public hero gets his ass kicked, how does that affect him personally? How is he going to get over that? What are the other things that are going to happen? With the introduction of his father, which was played by the late Reggie Cathey. And he just did, and their relationship is amazing, and the arc of that relationship is really interesting. When you start taking people away from Luke, what are you left with? And then how does he get to the other side? And the interesting thing when you watch which is really why you have to watch all 13 episodes, is because the Luke Cage at the end of season 2 is very different than the Luke Cage at the beginning of season 2. And even more interesting is, by the time you really get to the end, I think people's initial reaction is going to be like, I need to start from episode 1 because I really didn't know this guy. I thought I did.
Right.
It's one of those things that I think is going to be a really cool revelation.
I'd agree with that. Like, I think his character journey is fascinating in this. I think he has the getting punched in the face moment. It's pretty beautiful. And yeah, I mean, like, a part of this show is this idea of social media. I mean, not that social media is bad, but that its damage also relates to how we survive and navigate our identity. Following something like, a huge, the equivalent of getting punched in the face,
Yeah.
except on Twitter. And yeah, and if that wasn't, I'm working around it because I'm afraid about like what exactly we're spoiling or not. But if the moment that happens to Luke Cage was not recorded, I wonder if he would have approached it the exact same way.
Right.
It's very important that it was recorded, and that's an aspect of throughout the season.
Well, I mean, that's why it's like one of my favorite moments is one of my favorite characters that we really developed this season is the character of DW,
Mm-hmm.
because from the comic books, there was the character DW Griffith, who is when Luke Cage is working in his little office above the gym theater. There's the movie buff who's always around Luke. So we basically, the kid who was selling DVDs on the corner in season 1 of Luke Cage, we decided, okay, that's who it's going to turn out that's who that is. It's our version of that. So D-Dub works in Harlem's he works in Pop's barbershop. He sells. I mean, the T-shirt that I'm on right now is actually one of the.
Are those all going to be for sale? By the way, all the shirts in the show.
I wish.
You try? Okay.
I mean,
right.
you know what happened was this shirt was so cool that I got on set. I said, if there's double XL, I'll just take one off the top. And this is.
Cheo, by the way, is wearing the Run DMC Luke Cage shirt.
Yeah. Like at some point, hopefully, we'll actually talk with Run DMC and Marvel marketing, because I really think that this shirt would take off if we put it out.
Absolutely.
But that's the thing. It was like, that's what D-Dub does. Is he basically becomes, as he calls himself, he's Luke's Howard Bingham. He follows Luke. He takes pictures of Luke. Even the moment from the trailer when he's like, "Got it all, man."
Yeah.
It's like Luke wasn't expecting him to be there,
Right?
And then he puts it online. Luke is, after this point, he's like, "Look, I'm sick and tired of running from the camera, so I'm going to look in the camera and say, look, I'm Luke Cage. I'm this, I'm that. Get at me." But putting that out there is you're inviting trouble into your realm,
Mm-hmm.
because you're getting to the point where you're feeling yourself and you feel like you're invulnerable, and then that's when you get punched in the face. It's usually at the moment that you feel like you're bulletproof. That's when things happen. I mean, one of my favorite, the new and Untouchable Death Row Records. Which was because I was at House of Blues on 4th of July, 1996, when Tupac was on stage, and they'd already pushed Dre out of the company and rebranded the company, the New and Untouchable Death Row Records, and then a month and a half later, Tupac was dead. Main Source forever, Bobby Brown forever, Spice Girls forever, virtually every group, Wu-Tang forever, virtually every group that's ever named an album forever within a year is broken up. I mean, Wu-Tang is, of course, rebranded, gotten back together, but it's all like Puff Daddy Forever. Right after Puff Daddy Forever, like I remember,
That's amazing.
I was around Puff, and this was before the album came out. They'd flown me to Miami. This was really early on in my career to work on basically on a long form music video for that album. And I was with Benny Medina, who of course manages J-Lo, and has for years. And this was around the time that he transitioned from managing Puff to managing J-Lo. I remember we were actually in Atlanta, and he was telling me the premise, and I said, Benny, like, you cannot let Puff name this album forever. and he's like, yo, well, this is his concept. He wants to found the youth and this everything. I said, you can't do it, man. I said, Bobby Brown forever, Main Source forever, Spice Girls. I said, you can't, no.
I can't believe it.
And then he did, and then that's when the whole, Puff caught the case and had to go to trial, Shine, the whole thing fell apart when that album came out.
You're blowing my mind right now.
But yeah, well, first, never name any work forever.
Right.
Period. It's
okay.
cursed.
No, done. That's a new rule.
But that's the thing. It's like, because with Luke Cage, he's fighting against this sense of invulnerability and technically immortality to a certain extent. You know, because with his cellular regeneration, which gives him his powers, he really should be like Wolverine. Like, you know, that's the thing. That's where his strength comes from, is because with his cells regenerating, that's what makes him strong. With, you know, his healing factor, all these things. So it's like, with Luke Cage, you have to, when you find somebody that can actually fight him on his level, when you find somebody that, you know, is going to challenge him, that's really, he's facing what any boxer faces. You know, boxers, I think, are not defined by being undefeated. They're really, the best boxers are defined by defeat because of the fact that they put it all on the line, lost, and got it back. That's, to me, why Muhammad Ali will always be one of the best champions of all time. But it's not because he didn't get defeated. Like, there are a number of times Ali got his ass kicked, but he always, you know, eventually avenged those defeats. I mean, his whole rivalry with Joe Frazier, perfect example. Like, very few people remember the fact that, you know, Ali Frazier won, Ali lost, you know, and then he won two, and he famously, of course, the Thriller Manila, you know, went the distance, but like, you know, both men kind of like lost.
Right. It was an exchange, and it wasn't. Yeah. It's not just like a meteoric straight up rise.
And that was the one thing that we also do in terms of season 2 of Luke Cage, in terms of our arc for Bushmaster and Luke. It's Ali Frazier 1, Ali Frazier 2, Ali Frazier 3. Is really making sure that as they skirmish, like, each fight has its own quality.
Speaking of, we brought up Bushmaster a few times. So Bushmaster's a central villain of the season. I don't know if this is a spoiler, but the season, I feel, is one solid piece. Whereas season 1 was sort of bisected. And I feel like almost every Marvel show, it's like, it's a 2-arc show. That's what they do. This one feels like a 1-arc. It's a one story, one straight narrative. The actor playing him, who I believe is Mustafa Shakir, is the guy I played. I've known him best from a show that no one watched called Quarry. It was the FanBros own Chico Leo turned me on to, and he's incredible in that. Yeah. And he is totally different here. Oh, tell me about how you found him, like how you figured out that this was going to be your character.
We had the audition in LA, and we saw some actors that were really good, but then Mustafa walked in, and like, he did the audition after you left. We just all looked at each other like, yeah. Like,
did you audition him as Jamaican? Were you like, come in, do your Jamaican?
Yeah, but the thing was that they wanted, Marvel and Netflix wanted both, because one of the bigger challenges was saying, okay, you know, they were in this whole thing with like they were unsure about the accent. They were unsure, like, you know, do you want to have, like, so maybe he's Jamaican, but because he grew up in America, like, he doesn't have the accent, and this and that. And I was like, and I basically said no.
I'm so happy.
I'm like, we're not doing subtitles, and we're going to go for as authentic as possible in terms of the patois, because of the fact that I wanted the audience to experience it the way that I experienced in the '90s, where, like, you know, at first you're hearing like a Shabba Ranks song, like Roots and Culture, and because you're not familiar with patois, you think that he's saying word 'em up instead of saying murderer. You know, like, but what happens is that the more that you listen and understand the accent, then you really begin to understand what they're talking about. And the process is just, you just have to just let the words and the rhythms wash over you, and then eventually you really begin to get insight and understanding. And so it happened, I saw it happen really as people began to see finished episodes. They would start off saying in episode 1, I don't want to say what anybody's saying, but then by episode 5, they're like, Wagwan. You know, so it becomes this whole thing where it's just like, I really feel like, I'm hoping that the same thing happens with the audience, is that they'll experience that. And that, I mean, the thing is that we try enough to get it right, and hopefully people will give us, you know, will not give us props for it, but at the very least appreciate that we really were trying our best, you know, to do something different. I mean, you know, the thing, like, I haven't really yet talked to any, you know, Nigerians or South Africans about Black Panther yet. The overall thing that I hear is that while some people say some of the accents aren't as accurate as others, it's just the fact that Africa was put forward in a positive light, that the bigger picture, people understand that, you know, Ryan Coogler was going for for something authentic, and so that every single thing that you see, it comes from various aspects of African culture, different countries on the continent, but it's got a real, feel and that's authentic. And it's kind of the same thing with us in terms of, we know we didn't get everything right, but we wanted the field itself to be authentic. We wanted people, particularly that come from that culture, to understand that we were not just being respectful, but we wanted to really celebrate elements of the culture and the complexities of that culture. Because the last thing we wanted to do is do some like Steven Seagal, Mark for Death kind of.
No, I mean, it could have gone there. Right? I'm so happy that you were able to rally for that representation because I do think it's there. And I think that there are challenges to listening to the patois on the show, but I agree with you. I think they'll get it. I think a few episodes in, they'll be sharing the lingo. They'll be speaking some weird element of it. And also, I mean, like even the restaurant. What was the name of the restaurant in the?
Well, it's in the restaurant the restaurant in the show is called Glenn's. It's actually
Glenn's, that's right.
It's actually the best Jamaican restaurant that I've gone to. It's in Brooklyn. It's called Gladys.
Okay.
But which is really it's such a great restaurant.